Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. And today I have a little card that is a thank you card, and it's the first opportunity that I've had to play with the new stamp set out of the catalog that is called Blossoms in Bloom, and it has a die set that goes with it called Many Layered Blossoms. And I'm just using the stamp, well, I guess I did use one of the little dies in here, but I came up with what I think is a very pretty little card, and so let's just get started. Okay, so here is my card, and the only thing I'm going to change up, I think, with this time around is I've cut a few little leaves to go around this flower. It looks a little lonely there. So I put that on the outside, this on the inside, and I didn't use any of the big dies. Now what I did use was, of course, this lovely stamp set, and I used, I'm pretty sure it was this little stamp here. I used this for the center of my flowers. I used all three of the leaves, and I used the thank you from this. And then I used, the only other thing I used from another stamp set is from Forever Fern. I did use this little splatter down here to add a little texture to the front of my card. And then the die sets, this is a very elaborate die set. It cuts out, well, it cuts out all kinds of things. You can get a stamped layer underneath, then this layer in another color, and then this outline in yet another color or in a foil. I've seen some things done out there that are just stunningly beautiful. And so I'll be playing with this in a bit. But I want to start with something that's fairly simple. The other die that I used, I don't know if you've seen these or not, but this this die set is from Hippo and Friends, and normally I don't buy these die sets and stamp sets that have little cute critters on them and stuff. It's just kind of not my style. But I now have a grandson, so I've broken down and bought a few. And one of the things that's in here are all of these labels. Look at this. This is a set of nesting stitched labels in this, and I used the two smallest of the ones in here for my die cutting, and then I used one of the flowers from the Many Layered Blossoms die set that I just showed you. And so those are the ones that I used. And what it takes to make this card, I used a Pear Pizzazz card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. And then I have 2 pieces of Highland heather that are 4 by 5 1/4, and 2 pieces of Whisper White that are 3 3/4 by 5. Then I have some scrap. I cut my little flower from a piece of scrap of Highland heather, and then I cut the large label. On this one I used Gorgeous Grape, and it looks okay, but I thought I'd switch back and just keep the colors all the same. So I cut the larger of those dies in Highland heather and the smallest, and then one in green, and I'll show you what I did with it. Then I stamped a handful of these tiniest leaves in the stamp set, these, and on just a piece of Whisper White, and I just fussy cut a couple of them out so I could have some to stick around here. So, and I've cut those already just to save a little bit of time. It's a pretty simple process. Okay, so let me move some of these things out of the way here and show you how I did my stamping. I just love the two-tone color on these flowers, and I'll show you what I did. I took one of my panels of Whisper White that is 3 3/4 by 5. And I've got my largest of the stamps set up on my Stamparatus. And these are photopolymer, so I'm using my platform here. And then I need a big piece of scratch paper to go under because I don't want to get ink all over my pad here. So I've got a piece of just scratch paper and I'm tucking it in the corner, and I'm tucking this piece right in the corner as well. And I don't think my stamps are going to come anywhere near that corner, so I can use my magnet there. And then when this stamps, it's going to come down and give us the image of these stamped flowers. I may want to move that up just a little bit because I had this set up for a larger piece of paper earlier. And what I want is for the flowers to come fairly far up the page. Maybe like that. Okay. So let me pick up my stamp set here. All right, now what I did, the inks that I am using, I'm using Pear Pizzazz for the leaves. I'm using Highland Heather and Melon Mambo and Memento. All right, so in order to get this beautiful two-tone color on the flower, what I did was I inked up this flower in Highland Heather. I inked it up really nice and solid, and then I stamped it down once just as Highland Heather, and getting lots of pressure on that to make a good image. There we go, we've got our Highland Heather. And then I inked it back up in Highland Heather. And then I used my Melon Mambo and a dauber. And what I did was I used my dauber and I went around the edges of the petals of the flowers. And granted, they're not all going to be on there, but I wanted to, just in case a little spot shows, I want to make sure it's consistent. And then I put a little dab kind of right in the middle of the flowers. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to stamp that again. And put good pressure so I get a good impression. Oh, look at that. This is a good thing to explain. If your piece of paper moved like mine did, then you're going to get something that looks like an out of focus photograph, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to grab another piece of paper here that is already cut to size, and we're going to do that again. And the thing to do on this is that after you stamp it the first time, take your magnet off and replace everything up in this corner so we're sure we've got it right tucked in the corner. And so that's a little tip about getting a nice crisp image with this. This is one of those distinctives, and it has the light and the dark built into it. So I'm going to do that again. And even if you think, like I did, that that was in the right place, don't take the chance. So there is my Highland Heather again. Now I'm going to reset this right in that corner and put my magnet back in place before I ink this up and stamp it again. So I'm going to re-put my Highland Heather, go over my edges with the Melon Mambo, and stamp that again. And I'm sure that is up in the corner now. So hopefully I will get a good image. Lots of pressure. This is a very big stamp, and you want to make sure you get pressure all along the places of the stamp. From the top, right down the middle, around the edges. Make sure you've really got it covered. And there we go. Now that's a nice crisp image. And you can see the difference by being off just a tiny bit. So take the time, I guess is what I would say, for adding or putting your piece. See, and I go to move it and I can feel it move just a little bit. In fact, I had 2 pieces of paper there. I'm going to stick that back in the corner, and I'm going to go just around these edges one more time in the Melon Mambo. And there we go. That's more what I was looking for. And the beauty of the Stamparatus is you can do it again and again and again until you get it exactly the way you want it. So I'm going to take this out of here now, and I'm going to do the rest of my stamping. Let me get my chamois on this. And I've got my handy Post-it piece here to do my masking, little bit of masking that I'm going to do. And it's masking, what I call masking on the fly. I'm not really making a mask. I'm just going to put it so that I can use my leaves with my Pear Pizzazz and get some of those leaves right close into where the flowers are. So I'm going to put one there, and then I'd like to have one coming out and away right there. And so if I just use my Post-it, I can pretty well mask the places that I don't want. I want the leaves to be coming out from behind. And that's a perfect place to use maybe, and this is going to go a little further up on the page than that first one did, maybe use this leaf up here. And then I'm going to use this little leaf to fill in some of these places in between the flowers, because that would be quite natural, wouldn't it, to have some leaves poking in and behind your flowers. And if you needed to use a mask to do this, you certainly could, but this little leaf is tiny and it fits in all kinds of little places here. Now this time I'm going to use it as a piece of scratch paper, so I get one down there. There, I think that's pretty good. Now then, I'm going to use my Memento, and I'm going to use this black to get centers into my flowers. And you need to turn this little set of stamens or dots in the flower to whatever configuration works best with the way your flower is positioned. And I think that's pretty good. All right, so there is that. Now then, I'm going to go ahead and use my splatter with the Highland Heather and the Pear Pizzazz. So I'm going to use this splatter, and let's see, since this is not something I'm going to use, I can use it for my scratch paper, and I'm going to stamp off, and then I want to put just a hint of this green splatter around on my card. And I'm going to have a sentiment in here also, so I don't want to overdo it. And then I'm going to clean that off. Let's see here a little bit, and then put some of the purple on there and add some purple. So I've got splatters that are green and purple on my I will have purple if I quit dipping it in the green. Okay, so I'm going to get a few around a couple different places here, and I think that's going to be plenty. Maybe one more little bit of green right here in the center. Okay, so it adds just a little bit of texture, and we can do that on the inside. Now for the inside piece, what I've done here is I put 3 little flowers and some of those small leaves. So I have my little flower, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the big one. I'm going to put a Highland heather on it, and then I'm going to take some of that melon mambo and just go around the outside and put a few of these flowers on the inside of my card. There's plenty on this dauber. I don't even need to re-ink. And on this one, I think maybe I'll just put the 2, and then I can use the little bit larger leaf on some places here, like right down there. And then the smaller leaf here, maybe right down there, and one over on this side. Great. Now, to get that effect on the center of the flowers, I used my black marker, and I just went in and added some of those purple dots to the inside of my flowers. And I'm going to take that splatter and do that same thing. Put a little bit of the green around, and then clear that off, and maybe put a little bit of the purple as well. There, I think that makes a lovely inside of the card. All right, I think, well, let's see. I am done with the colors, and I put my message down in black. Now, let me get my little pieces here. I've got this one. On these pieces, what I did was I wanted to do my stamping on this piece of Highland heather, and I have my thank you from the stamp set mounted, and I'm going to do that in my memento. I thought about doing it in Gorgeous Grape, but I didn't like the Gorgeous Grape that ended up on this one. It's too far off from the soft colors that are there. So I'm going to put my thank you here in black. We have those black centers of the flowers, so I think that's fine. That is really not straight. Let me try that again. There we go. So now I've got my thank you. Okay, so there's my thank you. And what I did was I took my green one that I made out of that same die, and I cut it in half, and then added a little bit of snail to the back side of my message. On the top and the bottom. And then I could add these pieces just right, framing this little sentiment there, and framing it on both sides. There we go. Then I can just add a couple of dimensionals to the back of this and put that in place on my larger piece and have the colors remain roughly the same. There. Okay, so there is my sentiment done. Now on this one, I'm just going to put some snail on the back since I raised the words to put on the front of my card. And I'm going to leave that right here on my silicone mat because it's got a gluey background. All right, so I have this piece now to add here. And one of the things that I found was that if I didn't like being able to see through that, so I just put a little bit of glue on the center of this back of the flower and place it on this piece of scrap, and you'll notice I put the glue just in the middle so that I could fold this back and I could trim away pieces that I don't want to show. There we go. And then, oh, I didn't quite get it, but it's close. And so I'm going to use the Melon Mambo that's left on my dauber, and I'm going to put that on my sentiment here. My thank you, and that way I can put a dimensional on the back of it too. I can put a dimensional right there and then use some glue on the other part of it so that it's hanging out, and I don't want it to cover my words. Maybe I'll set it so that it's down below then. Okay, there we go. Now I have these little green leaves that I cut out, and I'm going to add a couple of them by adding a little bit of tape runner on the back of them and sticking them into place. There we go. I like that a lot better already. Okay, there we go. And then maybe I can take another one of them. I think I cut 4, and I'll probably end up using 3. And stick this one so that it is behind the flower and stuck to the flower rather than the piece underneath, although that looks like it needs a dimensional. And there we go. That one is now stuck to a dimensional and will stick down to the front of the card. All right, so let's put the rest of this together. So on these pieces, I'm going to add my snail to the back of my cards and add them to the Highland Heather mats. There we go. There's the one for the inside, and here's the one for the front of the card. And I've now had a chance to work with this snail a little bit. It's called Stampin' Seal. And what I find is that to get it to be the most effective, that you can start it more at this angle to catch the glue, but end with it straight up and check off. And that means that the next piece of glue is right there so that when you go like this and pull, it's right where you want it. Then straight up and check off. And it works every single time. I sat here and fooled with it and fooled with it and fooled with it, and I decided that that is the trick. Okay, so now I'm going to set this piece on the mat and then add my tape runner here to the back and put this piece on the front of the card. There we go. And then this piece is now ready to go here on our card. And for this one, I think it makes sense to have it be up a little bit higher, about like that. And then maybe we'll put a gem in the middle of that. Okay, so now this piece for the inside of the card, there we go. Very nice. And I do think I like this better with the Highland Heather matte on the bottom instead of the Gorgeous Grape. Okay, then I've got some rhinestones, and I thought I would put one of these great big ones right in the middle of this flower. Isn't that pretty? Then I can tuck a few of these around the card, maybe right in next to the flower, kind of framing it a little bit. There we go, like that. Isn't that just pretty? I think I'm going to love this stamp set. I have a really fun idea for the next one. My mind gets racing. And so there's the inside of our card, and that's my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. Right now through the month of June, there's a special offer that is the normal join offer, which is $125 worth of material for $99, and then you get to pick the bundle of your choice from the catalog. So it's a really good time to join because that's a pretty good deal. So that's that. My prize for the month is also a bundle of your choice out of the catalog. And to put yourself in my drawing, all you need to do is put an order on my store, lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye!